No one dared to look directly at him. The guards pushed him roughly, but he didn't resist. The frail body of the Apostle John walked among uneven stones, surrounded by a crowd that didn't know whether to feel afraid or ashamed. Many there had listened to his words, seen his miracles, felt the warmth of his presence in the streets. But now, silent, they watched the one who spoke of the love of an unseen God being led away like a criminal, condemned to the cruelest punishment. The silence of the crowd spoke louder than 1,000 shouts. It was the silence of doubt, of cowardice, of unspoken regret. John wasn't young anymore. His hair, once dark as the shade of olive trees, now reflected the white of years lived in total surrender. Time had marked his body, but not his faith. Ever since he saw the Master leave the earth and ascend to heaven, his life has been a flame that refused to be extinguished. He was the last one, the last of the 12. All the others had already fallen under swords, spears, crosses, and in prisons. And yet, there he was, with steady eyes, a peaceful soul, and a burning heart. There was no cry of despair, no plea for mercy, just the quiet strength of someone who had already surrendered his own life long before death arrived. The stage was set as if for a show. In the center of the square, a grotesque cauldron bubbled with boiling oil. The acrid smell filled the air. The priests of the empire were present, witnessing the punishment given to all who dared to preach another kingdom. "This man defied Caesar," one of the soldiers shouted. But John remained silent. His eyes were not on his executioners, they were fixed on the sky. And then something strange began to happen. A gentle breeze blew between the marble columns. The clouds moved slowly. Time seemed to slow down. There are no clear records of what went through his mind at that moment. Maybe memories of the night he rested his head on Jesus' chest. Maybe the echo of the Master's voice saying, "Truly I tell you, whoever believes in me, even though he dies, will live." Or maybe none of that. Maybe just the pure, indestructible certainty that everything was under control. The frail body was bound with thick chains as the soldiers prepared for the barbaric ritual. And then, at the exact moment they lifted him to plunge him into the scalding oil, the sky darkened, not with clouds, but with reverence. The crowd held their breath. The sound of the bubbling oil mixed with the quickening beat of their hearts. This scene should have been short, cruel, and for everyone to see, but something happened. Something that would challenge not only reason, but the empire itself. When John's body was lowered into the cauldron, they expected to hear the sound of flesh being destroyed, the piercing screams of pain, the end of a heretic. But what echoed was the sound of silence. No screams, no crackling, no apparent pain, just silence. And within that silence, a presence that no one there could explain. John wasn't just alive, he stood there, his eyes opened, and his lips murmured something, a prayer maybe. The soldiers backed away instinctively. The crowd didn't know whether to run or to kneel. One of the guards fell to his knees, others cried like babies. The pagan priest dropped his golden censer and his hands trembled like leaves in the wind. It was impossible to deny. Something supernatural was happening. The oil was boiling, but it wasn't burning. John's skin was surrounded by a faint light, almost invisible but real. He was protected, untouchable, unharmed. Stories of that day spread like the fire that should have consumed him. But no human record could capture what truly unfolded in the heavens at that moment. Some swore they saw angels surrounding the cauldron. Others said they heard a gentle voice, like a father calling his son back. The emperor, upon hearing what happened, didn't order another execution. Instead, he decided to banish John to a place where he would never be heard from again. A dry, rocky island where forgotten criminals were sent, condemned to die of loneliness, Patmos. And it was there, in that desolate place, far from the noise of the world, that John had the grandest vision of his entire life. A revelation that would seal the destiny of humanity. But before we continue, I want to give you an invitation. If you're still here, it's because this story touched something inside you. Maybe it reminded you of times when the world also tried to silence you. Maybe you felt fear, shame, or an emptiness you can't explain. But know this, God still speaks, He still protects, and He still reveals. So, if you believe this video is here for a greater purpose, write in the comments. I know that God still protects me. It's simple, but profound. This phrase can be the bridge between your pain and your freedom. And if you feel like more people need to hear this story, subscribe to the channel now. Here, every week, we remember the stories that time has tried to erase, but that heaven insists on keeping alive. And share this video with someone you love. It might be exactly what they need to keep going. Days on Patmos weren't easy. The sun beat down. Water was scarce. Food was rationed. And the silence seemed to scream. John now walked among sharp rocks and memories. The absence of human voices made the echoes of his soul speak louder. But it wasn't the end. It never was. Because even exiled, even old, even discredited by men, heaven still spoke to him. And one morning, as the wind blew from the east, something extraordinary happened. The earth seemed to tremble slightly, and the sky glowed with a light that didn't come from the sun. John heard his name, not with his ears, but with his heart. And then he saw. The vision wasn't a dream. It was a revelation. Through it, John was led to places he could never reach on foot. He saw the Lamb of God, glorified. He saw the angels and the elders. He saw justice being served. He saw what was to come. And all of that was given to him so that none of us would walk in darkness. There on that forgotten island, John wrote what we know today as the Book of Revelation. Not as a book of terror, but as a map of hope. Every word overflowed with fire and tenderness, justice and mercy. He left us the final testimony of a man who faced death but chose to believe. The wounds of exile did not stop his mission. Old age was not an excuse for silence. John continued writing, preaching, and being an example until his last breath. They say that in his final years his legs could no longer support him. He was carried by younger members to the community gatherings, and even with a weak voice, he still said, "Little children, love one another." Because that was, deep down, the summary of everything he had lived. John was not important in the eyes of the empire, but he was eternal in the eyes of heaven. And now I ask you, having journeyed with us this far, which part of this story resonated with you the most? Have you ever felt exiled in your own thoughts? Have you ever been afraid of burning out under life's pressures? Have you ever wanted to give up because you felt like no one was listening? If so, you're closer to John's experience than you might think. And like him, you too can be visited by God even in the driest deserts of your existence. If this video spoke to you, let us know what you felt in the comments. Tell us your story of faith. Share a time when you were protected, even when all seemed lost. Our channel is a community of people who, like you, believe there's more between heaven and earth than meets the eye. If you haven't subscribed yet, join us. Here, every video is a reunion with hope. Click subscribe like taking a step towards the light. And if this content touched your heart, share it with someone who needs reminding that God still cares for them. Because maybe like John, someone you know is running low on oil, but faith will save them.